There's been a bit of an interesting situation with the electronic line calling. Speaking of Taylor Fritz the other day, when he lost his match against Brendan, he said that it had nothing to do with the outcome of the match, but there was a ball that was about this far out, and the electronic line calling didn't pick it up, and they kept playing. So he hit, I believe 3 more shots. They both hit about 3 more shots after that, and then the word of God said, stop, stop, stop. Now, I want to know from your perspective, people like, I thought you said it was, 100% accurate. I never said it was 100% accurate, but I feel like, and as you would feel like, players feel like it's going to be the same for both players no matter what, right? So what do you think about that situation and just overall in general?
Yeah, nothing's ever going to be 100% accurate. And it just kind of messed up by not making the out call. It still let the players and the umpire and the fans know that the ball was out. It accurately notified people the ball was out.
Yeah.
Once that happened, the umpire should have gone, hey, Taylor, hey, Brandon, that ball from 3 shots ago was out. Here's the proof. Here's the video evidence. And the point should have been awarded to Taylor. It's so
100%.
obvious. And it's tough in the moment. I even maybe feel like Brandon Nakashima should have said, all right, no problem, Taylor, your point.
Yeah.
I don't actually think it's Brandon's job to do that. I think it's the umpire's job to stand up and make the right decision and say, hey, that's Taylor's point. Maybe internally at the ATP and WTA, they hadn't thought about this type of scenario if it happened. I think moving forward, they would do that and make the change and say, hey, if Hawkeye doesn't correctly call a ball in or out and the point somehow continues, we're going to go back to whatever call should have been made.
Yeah.
It was unfortunate. Like Taylor said, it didn't affect the outcome of the match.
Yeah, because he won the next point.
You won the next point, and I think it was early in the second set.
Yeah.
But the ATP or the umpire, whoever's in charge of making that decision moving forward, needs to come up with a kind of a black and white decision on how that's going to be handled. And it's not the way they handled it currently.
Yeah. I mean, I don't understand how, clearly a precedent has been set now, right? But, for the umpire to say something I'm just going to flat out say it, as dumb as you should have stopped the point. It's like, wait, I'm not going to stop the point. It's electronic sign.
Right. I'm surprised the supervisor didn't come out and say, hey, guys, this is Taylor's point.
Yeah.
Like the ball was out and the machine's messed up. So sorry that happened, but it's Taylor's point. The ball was out.
Yeah, the ball was out. It's mind-boggling to me. But anyway, as we said, hopefully a precedent has been set. They've talked about it afterwards. If this happens again and the word of God says stop, 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 because that did not come from the umpire. That came from like some electronic thing. It should have just been right away. Mistake was made. No problem. Move on. And then we wouldn't have even had any of these problems. But I guess things like this have to happen for rules to be implemented, and hopefully the rule will be implemented going forward.
Exactly. You can't think of every scenario on what's going to happen in sports with Hawkeye or players going to the restroom or whatever the random scenarios are. So, sometimes you're going to have these one-off lessons that you're going to learn. It's how you react to things. So hopefully the ATP, WTA reacts to it in the right way and makes the proper changes going forward.
Yeah, because it will happen again. And like I said, to people on like social media that were like, Rennae, you always say that electronic line calling is great. And it is great. And, you and I both know if I'd had it in my time, the less stress on me, like knowing that an umpire didn't screw up a call or a linesman didn't screw up a call.
You would have had 10 more Grand Slams had you had electronic line calling.
Definitely had less gray hair. That's for sure. And I would have probably had a lot less therapy. But anyway. Another thing that's really interesting about what's happening, we like to talk about the stuff just necessarily not always about the tennis, is this fan abuse that's happening. Okay, there was situations, for example, in Europe this year when Danielle Collins had a go at, remember when she had, if you think it's so easy, you get your bit, right? She went at someone, and then we just recently had Denis Shapovalov had his issues in Washington, D.C. with a fan. And now Jordan Thompson has had his own issues with fans in Cincinnati. And a lot of this has to do with, in my opinion, guys that are betting on tennis. They've got it on their phones. This person recently did a whole thread of it on Instagram, on Twitter, saying, I'm sitting behind this guy and he's literally on a betting app right now. And so they feel like if you don't win a point for them, they have the right to now start abusing you and calling you all kinds of names, which is what they were doing to Jordan Thompson. And he took offense to it, as did Denis Shapovalov. What does the ATP, WTA, tennis in general have to do when it comes to fans like just yell out to players? It happens in other sports. We've seen it happen in baseball and basketball where players sometimes lose their mind. They run into the stands. never a good idea. But
Right.
what is the tennis associations going to do about this?
It's not an easy thing to handle. I remember playing matches, if win or lose, you'd win a match and all players are going through this. You'd open your Instagram and you'd have 15 to 100 death threats sometimes of
Yep.
it was always betters. And so, betting is a big part of not only tennis but other sports, and it's going to bring more revenue to the game. It's going to help
Which is fine.
increase prize money. Yeah, it's great. But it's a hard thing to manage for the ATP or the governing bodies. But I think a lot of these fans or these online threats, it's got to be one strike policies. If you verbally say something or attack players, hey, you're out of the stadium or you're out of the event. But then it gets to that point where it's, what's a verbal attack? How far can you push it? Because if you just tell a player, hey, you stink, like that's not that bad. He shouldn't get kicked out. So it's a tricky situation. The tours just need to monitor it. We don't want fans abusing players and saying nasty things to them. And as a player, you got to do your best to just not react to it and calmly try to go to an umpire, go to a supervisor and say, hey, this person over here is not acting in a humane manner. Can we talk to them and fix this situation? But because it's a nasty situation, like you said, and we're seeing it more and more.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's at some point, if it starts to become personal and a personal attack on someone and they're going at them, because, as I said, it does happen in baseball and basketball, but it's so loud and free flowing and stuff is happening all the time. Whereas in tennis,
Yep.
it's very quiet. So when someone says something to you, clearly, obviously directed right at you, I think linesmen or lineswomen or linespeople, if they hear something like that, they should be able to go to the umpire as well and say this man is or woman is being aggressive or is being derogatory towards a player, and have security go and remove them. Period. End of story. I think that's the way that you handle it. And particularly, it is always these guys that are betting on tennis and they just feel like they can say whatever. I mean, the abuse that players get. I mean, I get it myself, and I'm not playing anymore. I just get it if I comment on somebody in a commentating role and I get 55 people writing me on Instagram, which is just, I'm just like, wow, you need to really get a life. Anyway, seriously. All right.
I did some commentating side story last week for Tennis Channel. Some of my first commentating.
Yeah.
I did the same thing in on Instagram. You open it up. You're so horrible. I can't believe you said that. I'm like, it's my second time commentating. I'm trying my best. Like, what could I have been that bad? Did I say anything that outrageous?
Welcome to the world of online abuse, my friend, for just doing your job.